before Jesus' death, the final discourse genre.
On Thursday?
This is what, we'll get to that later, but this is the genre of literature that Mark 13 really is, and its synoptic parallels. In the synoptic tradition, Jesus tells of the destruction of the temple in his last discourse before his arrest. In the basic synoptic storyline, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, Jesus knows he will be arrested and be put to death in Jerusalem. These events are not mere possibilities to him. They are probable, morally certain, forthcoming, bound up with his present. Hence, this passage, Mark chapter 13, serves as his final discourse before death, an ultimate farewell speech. In the United States, persons about to die are said to see their entire lives flash before their eyes. Not so in the Mediterranean world. What is distinctive of final words before death in the Mediterranean and elsewhere is that the person about to die is believed to be capable of knowing what is going to happen to persons near and dear to him or her. Dying persons, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, are prescient because they are closer to the realm of God or the gods who know all things than to the realm of humans whose knowledge is limited to human experiences. The dying process puts a person into a specific type of altered state of consciousness, a special way of knowing from the viewpoint of God or the gods, as it were. There is ample evidence of this type of altered state of consciousness in antiquity. Consider the following instances collected by Theodor Gaster. Xenophon tells us, at the advent of death, men become more divine, and hence can foresee the forthcoming.
Like she just said.
Exactly. In the Iliad, the dying Patroclus tells of the coming death of Hector at the hands of Achilles, and the dying Hector predicts the death of Achilles himself. This isn't figurative language. Yeah, the story is mythical. The story is mythical. Never happened, but will always be true. But this detail in the story is taken from the experiences of Homer in his daily life with people dying. Similarly, in Sophocles' play, The Women of Trachis, the dying Heracles summons Alcmene so that she may learn from his last words, quote, "the things I now know by divine inspiration," end quote. The ancient poet Virgil finds it normal to have the dying Orestes predict that his slayer will soon meet retribution in the Aeneid. Plato, too, reports that Socrates made predictions during his last moments, realizing that, quote, "on the point of death, I am now in that condition in which men are most wont to prophesy," end quote, from the Apology. Cicero reports this also. The Israelite tradition equally shared this belief, as is clear from the final words of Jacob in Genesis 49 and Moses in Deuteronomy 31 through 34 and elsewhere. The well-known documents called Testaments, written around the time of Jesus, offer further witness to this belief. In the United States, with economics as the focal social institution, last words in testaments will deal with the disposition of goods. However, in Mediterranean antiquity, with the kinship institution being focal, final words will deal with concern for the tear in the social fabric resulting from the dying person's departure. Hence, the dying person will be deeply concerned about what will happen to his or her kin group.
Yeah, but Do the person knows that is about to die?
Yes, and they're close to death, and something activates. As the examples just cited indicate, toward the close of the dying process, the person soon to expire will impart significant information about what is soon to befall the group in general and individuals in the group. Soon to befall. Already pregnant in process now. This includes who will hold it together, the successor, if it's the leader dying, and advice to kin group members on how to keep the group together and going. Of course, before passing on, the dying person tries to assure the kin group of its well-being, offering abiding good wishes and expressing concern for the well-being of the group. It is within this cultural framework that Jesus' final words and actions need to be understood. A comparison of the prevailing view of Mark chapter 13 as apocalyptic eschatological discourse with the final discourse form yields the features shown in the following figure. According to the received view, the literary genre of Mark chapter 13 is apocalyptic eschatology. But according to cultural criticism, the literary genre of Mark chapter 13 is the final words before death literary form. According to the received view, the time model is Western linear time, past, present, future. But according to the social sciences, the time model is both experience time and imaginary time, which really mean or reveal a peasant perception and understanding of time. Experience time is past, present, and forthcoming of living persons, not abstract. And a possible past, the far past, and the possible future, imaginary time. Only God knows that, folks. So we can only read it according to our tradition, with Bible speak, like the day of the Lord and Genesis imagery. The explanatory concerns of Mark chapter 13 from the received view are largely all of 19th century vintage, totally lack any reference to altered states of consciousness experiences. Or say that the document is apocalyptic and eschatology, about the end of the world. The Son of Man and end of the world are what it involves in judgment for everything everywhere. Cosmic cataclysm. It's a midrash of figurative language, an ancient Jewish way of saying figuratively about something to keep hope going. The end of the world has been delayed, and so there's a problem. Unfulfilled prophecy, according to the received view. But the explanatory concerns given by social criticism, cultural criticism, are at home in the first century world of Jesus. Altered states of consciousness are referenced. The text isn't apocalyptic, it's astral prophecy. It's not eschatology, it's about the forthcoming. It's not about the end of the world, it's about the destruction of the temple city, Jerusalem. The Son of Man and end of Jerusalem are described in Bible speak language. It's not about the delay of the end of the world, but the population of Israelites awaiting theocracy in abeyance. And there's a solution. There is no unfulfilled prophecy because there's no prophecy about an end of the world. Never mind, no problem. It was fulfilled. Jerusalem was destroyed.
Now, Mark chapter 13 was written after Jesus was crucified, after he rose from the dead, and the Spirit was living among the Jesus group.
Sure.
And it was written after the temple was destroyed or before?
Oh, probably around the same time.
So, it was written with all this additional knowledge.
That's true, that affected it.
That's why the Holy Spirit is
Sure, that affected it. But it's likely that it is not bizarre to think that that Jesus stage 1 did talk about the destruction of the temple. We have different traditions about that.
right.
That had already happened in the past with Babylon. Empires do that. Keep testing Rome, it's going to happen. And God will allow that to happen because it's corrupt anyway. The poor are not getting the excess of the surplus of the temple. That's why it's an economic storehouse for the elites. What do you think God is going to eventually do? Right now, it's pregnant in the time Jesus is preaching and doing his prophetic sign action of cleansing the temple. That's the pregnancy. The child is going to be born eventually. That's the destruction. See? Because of Israel's territorial conceptions and the organic relationship of people to their land, the story of Mark chapter 13 is solely and only about Israel. Gentiles and Gentile territories do not enter into it at all. As a matter of fact, if you were in Israel when the temple's being destroyed and the Romans are attacking, you could save your life by fleeing to Gentile territories.